2021, a year of heartbreak, triumph, depression, happiness, and everything in between. The past 2 years have been very hard on the film industry as a whole. Theaters constantly going back and forth from closing down to opening to closing down again, release dates getting pushed back, the streaming wars taking over every nook and cranny. It's all over the place. But that doesn't mean we haven't gotten some truly memorable films this year, and if I'm being honest, in terms of actual quality, this is the best overall year for films since I'd say 2017. There were tons of surprises, a lot of films that managed to live up to most expectations, and lots of projects that took tons of chances in 2021. And yes, I did do a top 5 list earlier in the year for the films I did see, and those films aren't in my final top 10 simply because I already discussed them, and there's a lot I have to say about other films. I still love these films dearly, but I wanted to give these 10 a lot of time because I loved all of these. But before that, I'm gonna give 5 honorable mentions, movies that didn't crack my top 10, but still deserved attention. Malignant, a batshit crazy horror film with a ridiculous twist that I just ate up. This was the most fun I had with a horror film all year, and I loved it. No Time to Die, a satisfying ending to the Daniel Craig era of James Bond, filled with exciting action sequences, an amazing performance from Craig, and a very emotional ending. Nobody, one of the most badass films of the year, Bob Odenkirk becomes a force to be reckoned with in a sleek, violent, and relentless action film. Plus, Christopher Lloyd. That's all I need to say. Coda. So sweet, heartfelt, and well acted, this family drama has a unique point of view and will leave you with tears of joy by the end of it. And lastly, Mass, a staggering directorial debut from Frank Kranz. The simplicity of this film is simply inspiring. With unforgettable performances and an intelligent script, I see it almost as this generation's 12 Angry Men. Just before I get to my top 10 list, I just want to give a little quick disclaimer that this is only my opinion. These are just my top 10 favorite movies of 2021, and if you disagree with me, that's totally cool, that's totally fine. Just don't go too crazy about it and don't get too riled up about it. Okay, let's get to the top 10. Number 10, Spider-Man: No Way Home. Ever since I was 4 years old, Spider-Man has meant everything to me. So I'm a little bit more critical of media involving the character, and while I have enjoyed the MCU's Spider-Man films by John Watts, I've always felt that they haven't really met their full potential yet. They feel held back into Disney Channel original territory with little conflict and too much emphasis on overly cute humor. However, this changed with Spider-Man: No Way Home, which I felt not only still managed to keep consistent with the humor and the lighthearted tone, but also evolved Peter Parker into the character that I grew up loving. The stakes are much higher, the drama feels more palpable, and much like Parker, the story feels like it's grown up across all 3 films. There's a lot going on, yet it still managed to be focused on what's most important to the character and the story. That is actually very impressive considering how other Spider-Man films in the past failed to get that right. There are moments in the film that I will never forget seeing for the first time, not just because they're fan service, but because how they managed to conclude the stories for the past Spider-Man films, as well as close the book on the current trilogy. Tom Holland absolutely shines in the role in this film, easily the best performance he's given as this character. The same goes for the rest of the cast as well, for Zendaya and Jacob Batalon, who each have much more at stake in the story, and the returning characters from past Spider-Man films. Willem Dafoe is easily the highlight here, and in my opinion, improves his role as the Goblin even from the 2002 film. The theatrical experience of the film might be enough to put this on the list, but I do believe this was in fact the best way they could have possibly ended the home trilogy. It takes risks, it has great action, and it zips by in its 2.5-hour runtime. It's safe to say that this Spider-Man does whatever a great Spider-Man can. Number 9, The Last Duel. While moviegoing in 2021 was attempting to get back to the way it was before the pandemic, many films had to underperform or flat out bomb so that other films could fill the place of the blockbuster. Most of these films were aimed at adults, dramas, thrillers. Sadly, the one that I think deserved to be seen by the most people that wasn't is Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. This is a classic medieval drama / thriller that we honestly don't get much of anymore. The days of Scott's films like Gladiator and Kingdom of Heaven are long gone, telling by the box office, and it truly is a shame. The film is brutal, incredibly well made from every aspect, and has a stellar ensemble cast, told in the style of Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon. Told from 3 different perspectives, the sexual assault of a younger woman has heavy effects on the men of her life, leading to an inevitable duel that is either 2 men battling for the woman's justice, or strengthening their own egos. The acting in the film, as I said before, is wonderful. Matt Damon and Adam Driver provide troubled characters that you constantly switch back and forth on, from sympathy to pure disdain, based on the perspective you're seeing. Ben Affleck is deliciously entertaining and over the top, something you don't see very often from the actor, but the real showstopper here is Jodie Comer, encasing power, fear, and disgust towards the characters at various points in the story. The battle sequences are intense, featuring Scott's trademark handheld style and low frame rate, leading to the final duel in the film's climax, which is one of the most thrilling moments of cinema this year, not only because of the violence, but because of the determination in both characters that feels so genuine after seeing what each one has done since the beginning. The Last Duel truly did not deserve to underperform in cinemas this year for its intelligently written, gloriously transportive to the time period, and constantly makes you question whose side you're on throughout the story. This is a duel that must be seen to be fully appreciated. Number 8. Spencer. Biopics can be tricky ground for filmmakers. It's very easy to make a film that either strays so far from the reality of the story it becomes offensive, or a film that plays itself so close to the story that there's no real reason to exist beyond simply telling us what happened. Which is the reason why I love movies like Spencer, which manages to carry from real-life accounts of the sorrow and hardship Princess Diana had to go through as she tried to adapt to the royal life. Yet there's more to the creative angle of the story it's telling, blending reality with Diana's mental state as 3 days in Sandringham feel like an eternity. This film would not have worked, however, without some truly masterful actors to portray these figures, and Spencer provides some of the best performances of the entire year. Kristen Stewart is my choice for Best Actress this year because she utterly transformed before my very eyes. Not only is her accent dead spot on, but the costume department, the production design, and the almost dreamlike direction of the film bring you into an environment that should feel wonderful and lavish, but instead comes off as threatening and unsettling. This film works almost as well as a horror film as it does a drama at times. While some have found the film pretentious and prodding, I think it's intentional and it works to the film's benefit. This isn't meant to be a standard biopic. It's a character study and an experience of the films that Diana had to go through shortly before her tragic death, and it's a point of view no one ever really considers when it comes to royalty and power. What price do these things pay on those who weren't born in it? And in my opinion, Spencer answers those questions with class, style, and a heavy sense of dread. Number 7. The Green Knight. Fantasy has always been one of the most risky genres in cinema. Every so often you get a Lord of the Rings, but most of the time it's cliched tripe like Aragon or Seventh Son. However, the world of King Arthur has been perhaps the most trustworthy place to draw inspiration. There are so many great stories that offer everlasting themes and morals, and I am so grateful that we got a film like The Green Knight, which is a modern fantasy masterpiece in visuals, writing, and sound design. This A24 film by David Lowery is epic, thoughtful, and it also at times haunting. Much like some of the other films on this list, you feel transported into another world in this film. The wonderful design of the castles and the incredible practical effects are awe-inspiring in a world that operates on digital trickery. Just look at the design of the Green Knight himself. Good lord, this is awesome. The underrated Ralph Ineson's voice is also a great addition to the character as well. Dev Patel leads the film with a dignified yet conflicted performance as a hero who has yet to prove himself worthy of such. Several moments in his journey tested his ethics, his strength, and his courage. That of course all comes to a head in what is probably my favorite ending scene of the year. I'll try to be vague about it if you haven't seen it yet, but Sir Gawain's journey leads him back to the Green Knight himself in a brilliant turn of events and everything he had learned and brought with him, and must use them in a selfless way to win the game. The montage the film uses to explore this so perfectly expresses the message of the story without really having to explain to you directly what to learn. Visual storytelling like this will make this film last for years, and I think this will become a modern staple of Arthurian fantasy films. Number 6. Dune. Can Denis Villeneuve prove any more that he was indeed born to gift the world with his vision? This man has given me some of my favorite films of all time, and while his latest film might not be my favorite, it certainly is his most bold, massive, and most anticipated effort yet. The science fiction epic was first released in 1965 and was begging to be a great theatrical film, and even though David Lynch attempted this in 1984, the result was less than crowd-pleasing. And I think everyone can agree that not only is Villeneuve's reboot better, but it also has the edge of being part of a series instead of one complete film. The world of Frank Herbert's opus is simply too expansive and rich to be explored in one sitting, and thankfully 2021's Dune puts the emphasis on the characters rather than simply the visuals and mechanics of the world, even though it is shown in glorious detail. The film also works so well because of how well it's casted, and each one carries themselves in each other. Timothée Chalamet plays a sympathetic yet courageous young hero thrust in situations out of his control, as well as his parents played by Rebecca Ferguson and Oscar Isaac, bringing a sense of strength and care. Possibly the standout of the ensemble, however, is Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho, who is as charismatic as ever, not only showing brute strength, but a great deal of heart and honor to his family. All of these things help the film stand out among your typical sci-fi action film, but what truly sells the film are its visuals and its sound, bringing you into a universe that feels grounded yet unfamiliar. The cinematography utilizes scope and scale so well, it's amazing not many other films do this more often. If you missed it in theaters, you truly missed out on something special, but hopefully that doesn't stop you out from checking it out anyway. Number 5. Belfast. Kenneth Branagh's directorial career has been one of the most staggering filmographies for anyone that I have ever seen. Either you get Hamlet, or you get Artemis Fowl. It's so strange when you watch a complete disaster like Artemis Fowl, and then you watch a movie like Belfast, which is sweet, heartbreaking, and shot with so much clear passion behind the camera. You can clearly tell from the first frame that the subject matter of this film meant so much to Branagh, as the point of the story is made incredibly early on, and places you in the situation of a family who's trying to make the best of a horrible situation that is set to destroy their home. This is a movie that is fairly small scale, yet feels massive when you set the context. This film can go from a moment where the main character named Buddy is running around without a care in the world, but then is suddenly caught in the middle of a violent war between his neighbors. The family dynamic of the film is truly what makes it tick, with performances that make you believe that they have all lived together their entire lives. As young actor Jude Hill's second performance he is given, he's incredibly innocent and sympathetic, and you're following his perspective almost the entire time. Jamie Dornan, Kiernan Hines, Judi Dench, and Katrina Balfe all give fantastic performances, each able to present three-dimensional characters that feel genuine, conflicted, yet never questioning their loyalty and love to their kin. Belfast not only works as a historical drama, but also might even work for any generation who is simply looking for a simple story with heavy themes. Tolerance, war, faith, and kindness are all here, which I believe will make this a timeless motion picture for all ages. Number 4. Tick, Tick, Boom. Andrew Garfield, man, what more do I have to say? What an incredible year this man has had, from The Eyes of Tammy Faye to, and finally this Lin-Manuel Miranda directorial debut, which is just insane. For me, 2021 was the year where musicals just knocked it out of the park. In the Heights, West Side Story, all fantastic films that absolutely deserve their spots on Best of the Year lists, but if I had to pick one for my top 10, I'd have to give the spot to Tick Tick Boom, simply because I honestly felt the most for the main character in Jonathan Larson. Being a real-life person who created one of the most successful musicals of all time, the film still manages to make this person seem so relatable and down to earth. I think we've all had moments in our life where we feel so strongly about something that we made or worked on, and then that energy is just zapped when we're rejected for it. This is one of the main motifs of the film, and the directing, writing, and acting communicate this brilliantly. I just felt so connected to this film while I was watching it, because even though my goal in life is not to write musicals or do Broadway, I too am afraid of that rejection and the idea that one of my ideas that I'm passionate about won't even be considered in the long run because some people just won't get it. On top of all that, the musical numbers are stellar because Miranda has music running through his veins at this point, the staging is on point, and the set pieces are just grand like any other classic musical. Andrew Garfield's performance in this is my favorite from a lead actor this year, and I will be very disappointed if he doesn't win. This movie hit me on a very personal level, and I think that any passionate artist will feel just about the same. Number 3. The Suicide Squad. What I'm about to say might actually set some DC fans' heads on fire, but 2021 might have been the best year ever for a DC fan in terms of films or television. At least now, but we'll see when we get there. Not only did we get a fully realized correction of one of the biggest mistakes in Hollywood history, but we also got another fully realized correction of one of the biggest mistakes in Hollywood history. 2016 Suicide Squad, while it might have its defenders, was one of the most disappointing and wasted opportunities in terms of comic book films. You have all these great villains from DC's gallery, you have great actors to play them, and yet what we got was essentially a 2-hour trailer for a movie you're probably never gonna see. So people kinda gave up on the idea until one of the great masters of camp and excess, James Gunn, came on board after the monster success of Guardians of the Galaxy. We had a mostly new cast of characters, a brand new creative team, and a mostly studio interference-free project that was just allowed to be what it wanted to be. And isn't it great when that happens? Because that leads to what is arguably one of the greatest comic book films of the past 10 years. The name Suicide Squad went from a name that people made fun of in conversation to be a serious contender with the likes of the more beloved comic book IPs. While the film unfortunately was a disappointment at the box office, I believe it will grow very dedicated following it very quickly at home. This film is just so much fun from start to finish, never holding back in its graphic violence, bad language, and just dark, weird shit going on, and I adore it. The characters are each villainous in their own way, but each one is so well developed and explored that you grow to love all of them at some point. Everyone looks like they're having a ball in this film, from the delightfully arrogant Peacemaker played by John Cena, to the adorably dim-witted King Shark played by Sylvester Stallone. The fight scenes are hardcore and completely off the chain, the visuals are just delicious and beautiful, and the film has a surprising amount of emotional depth, especially by the ending climax. In an entertainment sphere that's packed to the brim with superheroes, this one stood out above all the rest in 2021. Number 2. Val. The best documentaries are all about spontaneity, the ability to capture a moment in time so that it will live on for any generation coming forward. That is exactly what this piece on actor Val Kilmer does, and it truly is a wonder that we have something this passionate, loving, and telling of an almost entire man's life, from his early days of naive curiosity to his later days of worn-out wisdom. Comprised of real film footage from Val Kilmer's young life and newly captured footage of the actor's life after his battle with throat cancer, Ting Poo and Leo Scott followed the life of not just a Hollywood movie star, but of a family man, an artist, and a survivor of something that could have broken his spirit. But the story clearly shows that no matter what obstacles got in his way, he managed to make it all work out. The film brilliantly makes the creative decision to have Val Kilmer's son Jack narrate his father's writing, which provides an appropriate substitute for having Val speak when he unfortunately cannot do so. It works as both a love letter to the man as well as an autobiography of his thoughts, observations, and outlooks on the various stages of his career and what comes after. For me, as someone who's always been a fan of Val Kilmer's work, it was both enlightening and heartbreaking to watch and listen to the man as he has been through so much throughout his life, but like any inspiring figure, it made him who he is, and he wouldn't take it back for the life of him. It's a miracle that all this footage of Kilmer hanging out with Kevin Bacon and Marlon Brando survived, and it's all thanks to a man who tried to make sure it was preserved forever. This is a rare kind of film that is a complete portrait of one person and how it has affected others around him. If you were or still are a fan of Val Kilmer or are into celebrity life at all, this is a definite must-see. And my number one favorite film of 2021 is Licorice Pizza. Yeah. Paul Thomas Anderson has given so much to the world of cinema, it seems like he has done it all. The way he crafts characters and the worlds he creates is so unlike anyone else in the business. Even when his characters do and say horrible things, you are still so invested in them that they almost feel like family. And this is 100% in line with Licorice Pizza, which in my opinion is the best film the director's made since There Will Be Blood. This film is patient, hilarious, ridiculous, and just flat out irresistible. This was the most fun I had in a theater with an audience all year, other than No Way Home. We laughed, we shrieked, we gasped, and it was just heaven to me. While the film, like some of Anderson's films, isn't so much structured around an A to B plot, the various situations that both Cooper Hoffman's Gary and Alana Haim's Alana get themselves into become so strange and unpredictable, you don't even mind. The film has my favorite cast of any film this year, led by two fantastic performances from Hoffman and Haim, who deliver great chemistry together, but it truly is the supporting characters of the film that make it as entertaining as it is. Bradley Cooper is a crazed film producer, John Peters, Sean Penn is a charming yet egocentric daredevil, Tom Waits is an old wisecracking filmmaker, and several others that I won't dare spoil for you. This is a film that's not afraid to make audiences uncomfortable, and clearly if you've been on Twitter about this film, you'll understand that. The film does have an age gap romance in the center, but that's not the point of the story. Licorice Pizza is about the manic energy of youth and love, and no matter what consequences await you, the feelings from those moments stay with you forever. This film is a love letter to the 1970s San Fernando Valley setting that Anderson clearly was influenced by in his own youth. It's a special film in character, acting, and directing, and it's the film in 2021 that made the biggest impact on me as a film lover.